of the current rider that they are able to feel at this time. All of these riders, I believe, are on smart trainers. Most of them, at least, should be on some sort of a smart trainer at while they're out here riding. So they will be feeling these gradients as well in the game. So you can see that negative 2% gradient. The riders will be feeling a lot less force against the pedals at this point. As we look at Mold here now, kicking a little bit as they hit this little 3-4% gradient. Now this is going to be most likely every lap the section out on course that we are definitely going to be watching for, because this is a little bit of a grinder, a little bit of a longer section where we do have a little bit of an uphill grind, 4% gradient, as you can see, and now we do see the attack starting on. We do see a feather power up there being thrown down, looks like by John Mold, actually, last week's winner here, taking a little bit of advantage of that power up that he did have. And feather power, for those of you who do not know, lighten the avatar in-game by about 1 watt per kilogram for 15 seconds. So it is an advantage that you can gain over the other riders. You collect power-ups every time you go through a sprint banner, finish banner, a lap banner, or a KOM banner. And so if you do collect those, you are able to use those in order to gain some sort of advantage against the other riders. There are also arrow power-ups, drafting power-ups, or you can get some extra experience. That is kind of a dreaded power-up to get, though, in the game during a race. The extra experience isn't going to do anything for you up against the other riders in the race. You can see Madison Genesis, Ian Bibby that we're looking at right now, 162 beats per minute. You can always kind of tell when you are watching the races out on Zwift, kind of where things are at for the tempo of the race, the current attacks, or where the suffering is at. Everything is kind of bunched up right now in the main pack, as you can see. The heart rates, though, for a few of these riders, very high here, depending on whether or not the Vetus presented by brother A. Slater here, whether or not he's into his threshold or above at this point. 184 beats per minute, fairly high at this point here, coming for Slater, actually. So we're going to have to see if that starts to calm down or not, or perhaps the pace just incredibly high for him at this point. But as you can see here for Ian Bibby, 156. Some of the metrics that we get out of Zwift here, really, really helpful for us to see where riders are at, what they can handle at this point, and whether or not the pace is incredibly high for them throughout the race now. Being a race that's going to be more about the sprints, I believe, it's going to be a little bit calmer until we do hit those sprint sections out on course. We'll be looking forward for that first sprint competition section coming up here very shortly here, about a half a lap till we hit that. Casey Shum now that we're looking at, coming from the All-Stars team, one of the most experienced racers out on Zwift. This guy's got 400 races underneath his belt. Maybe not be one of the strongest riders that you'll see out on Zwift, but definitely tactically savvy, very, very smart about how he can win a race. Coming out of Illinois and coming from triathlon, actually, and also TT world, this guy can go to the front and absolutely hammer it for quite a while. But amongst the pros, probably reserving a little bit of his matches to see what he can pull off for the All-Stars team. Battistella, as we're seeing from Team Quebec for Quebec here, 163 currently, as you can see, definitely keeping it fairly calm still. No real attacks that we can see at this point, so it looks like it's just going to be tempo for the riders. Definitely some high wattages for tempo there, as we're seeing nothing under 3.5 watts per kilogram on the right-hand side of the screen there, where the riders are highlighted there out on course now. As they do take this left-hand turn, we're going to be seeing them doing the second half of the figure eight. You can see in the upper right-hand corner, they've done the first half of the figure eight. Now they're going to go ahead and cut the course in half, as you can see in the upper right-hand corner of the map there, and take a left-hand turn and finish out the figure eight. We'll be looking forward to that sprint section that's going to be coming up here. It looks like we got a little bit of attack toward the front there. I did see some orange numbers. Now, if you are wondering about the orange numbers on the right-hand side of the riders nearby list, those who are in the race, whenever you do see those, it means that the riders are going into 8 watts per kilogram or more. And that essentially means that, look, this is getting into a sprint type effort at this point. The riders are starting to kick into something much more than just a threshold or a VO2 max effort where you can handle for 1 to 5 minutes. No, this is more of an effort that's going to look more like what I can handle for 30 seconds to a minute. So it's usually an attack. We do see Groves here from SEG Racing going off the front here, a little bit of an attack with an aero power up actually. Now that does reduce the drag on the rider's avatar slightly. It's essentially like in real life when you grab a good tailwind coming off a descent or coming out of a corner, get that tailwind, get an advantage off of the other riders. Somewhat similar to that, reducing that drag on your avatar, and you're able to get a little bit of a break off the front there. He gave it a little throw off the front there. It looks like Groves isn't going to be able to make it happen. We do see an increase in the heart rate, though, up into 183. Maybe suffering for that attack in just a few moments here. As the gradient goes down a little bit, the rider's going to be chilling out, and the main pack is going to most likely start coalescing together a little bit more, start holding hands a little bit more as they wait for the sprint section coming on up here. Up and out of the saddle now, you can see Groves again trying to grab onto the wheel, suffering a little bit for that attack he put off the front, and it looks like back in with the Ollie Jones, actually, the winner of the 2017 Zwift Academy, actually, on the men's side, rode for Team Dimension for Quebec, U23 team this past year. Now riding for the Zwift Academy Dream Team. Ollie Jones here, 160 beats per minute currently as they head into the second half of this lap. We're going to head over to our race analyst, though, Greg Jones, to chat a little bit about how the start went on for the race today. Greg Leal.
Hey, Nathan. I was looking at the power data for the beginning of this race, and for the first 7 minutes of this race, almost everyone in the front group put out more than 5 watts per kilogram. Jacques Souvanages is a standout coming from the Wiggins team, who put out over 6 watts per kilogram for the first 5 minutes of this race. And to put that in perspective, that's a fairly elite power output for a climb. And these guys are on a flat course. So that tells you just how hard these guys are going. One thing I noticed is that 2 of the riders who have put out the least power are Adam Zimmerman and Drujan from the All-Star team. All right, Nathan. We're coming up to the sprint. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah, it looks like we are coming up through the sprint here, and I think we are seeing a little bit of attack off the front, actually, coming from Madison Genesis. Interesting to see a little bit of a kick here coming from Connor Dunn, actually, from Israel Cycling. Now Madison Genesis countering there. Looks like Ed Hopper, the winner of week number 2 out on that Innsbruck ring, kicks. Actually, Ribble really starting to get organized up toward the front end of the pack here. We've got aero power-ups popping left and right now. It looks like the riders are starting to take a little bit of advantage of some of the attacks that just took place. Now an attack off the front again. We're looking at Groves again. SEG Racing continues to put the pressure on the riders here with another aero power-up. This guy's got a lot of random number games in his favor here today. RNG in his favor. Kerry Groves. It looks like SEG Racing with a 1-second gap. Not sure that's going to go much of anywhere. Will they close it down? It looks like it's going to happen here. Now a feather power-up coming from Canyon Iceberg. Canyon Iceberg on the attack here. It looks like coming into the lap banner now. 6.7 watts per kilogram. Madison Genesis now trying to counter it there with 9.6. 192 beats per minute coming from Jay Walker here from Madison Genesis. Now, this section of the course is extremely important. Looking forward from this section all the way through this first little part of the lap, it is a false flat all the way through. It is a solid section to really put an attack on it. Casey Shum, knowing that, extremely experienced rider out here on Zwift. We were talking about him being a TT specialist, coming from the triathlon world, riding for the All-Stars, tons of experience here. Lures comes on through here from Team Ribble. He's going to follow that up, it looks like. Look at the orange number there, coming from Casey Shum. 8.3 watts per kilogram coming from him. It's a 2-second gap coming back to Connor Swift, UK National Road Race Champion, now trying to close that down a little bit, but it's Lures off the front here. 7.6 watts per kilogram coming from him. Madison Genesis following up here. Israel Cycling trying to close it down. No Gruppo Compacto. The main group is starting to split now, as you can see. 7.2 from Ribble, continuing to push the pressure. 196 beats per minute currently coming from Alex Lures. Absolutely demolishing this. Looking at Ollie Jones. Ollie Jones knows that this is a moment of truth for this race. 6.9 watts per kilogram. 157 beats per minute we're seeing from him. Has plenty left in the tank. No, look at that. A little bit of a mess up there, it looks like, from the heart rate monitor. Maybe it was a little bit off on his chest there for just a moment, as we saw the heart rate climb very quickly the moment that he got back on terms. Another all-star looking to close it down. Vyastin here. Lionel coming out of Belgium, closing it on down. Wilson's trying to go with him. It looks like Connor Swift is still involved here, but look at the break there. It's barely off the front there. This is the front group. The break is taking place. Will the main pack be able to close this down? Can they get organized? We got Sobrero here at 7.5 watts per kilogram. Team Dimension for Quebec here trying to close it down. Now we got HB Axion also getting involved. And there it is. The break has been caught. Almost able to do something there. Now we're seeing that negative gradient come back in. The riders are going to start to calm down. Look in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. You can see that the riders are now not experiencing that false flat as much anymore. It's going to calm down a little bit here. There will be another little undulation in a moment here. We might see an attack off the front in a second here where a rider could take advantage of the little kick that they're going to have in front of him here and take some speed into this climb. We'll have to see if it does end up happening here, as we do have the Zwift Academy Dream Team with Ollie Jones now. We're looking at 185 beats per minute. Look at the difference in the heart rate we saw there just from that little attack. Now we are seeing a little bit of a break here, though, between these riders and the chase coming from Team Wiggins here, as well as SCG, who is off the back here. Lachlan here coming from Wiggins as well. In about 10th place, as you can see. It looks like we've got a couple of riders now jumping around a little bit out on course. We'll see if we can get the avatars to coalesce for us again here. It looks like Ollie Jones is going to be the one that is going to keep us steady here on the broadcast, as the heart rate's jumping around a little bit for him there. Sprint results are coming up here in just a moment, and we'll be able to see how things played out across that sprint banner. It looks like Lionel Vyazin followed up by Ed Hopper coming from Team Ribble, Matthew Jujon coming from the All-Stars, and Dan Bigham from Ribble. So Ribble, as well as the All-Stars, extremely involved in those sprints here. We're going to see if those two teams are going to still continue to go head-to-head. What was interesting was after the sprint, both of those teams went on the attack. It looks like they're showing up on the day-to-day and looking to take advantage not just of the sprint sections out on course, but also take advantage of the pressure that it puts on the pack to try and counter those sprints. We are seeing Baragali coming out of Italy now, starting to make a kick off the front, 7.5 watts per kilogram coming from him. It looks like Ollie Jones, ignore the heart rate there, I think, from Ollie today. I think his heart rate monitor might be moving around on his chest a little bit there. He is definitely holding it well up into the 170s to 180s continually as he goes toward the front end of this pack. We do see a lot of green jerseys currently toward the front end of the race right now. The Zwift Academy Dream Team attacking left and right, it looks like, on the front, trying to break things apart again on this back end of the Gotham Grinder course right now. Laverick here from Team Dimension Quebec, we're looking at for a moment here. This is the winner of the Zwift Academy finals, actually, this past year, coming out of Slovenia. And now it looks like we're back up toward the front end for Ollie Jones with another attack. This guy is being relentless into lap 2 right now, up into 7 watts per kilogram for a moment. They're 183 beats per minute. The Kiwi here absolutely trying to demolish and show that the Zwift Academy Dream Team can show up and race against the pros. But Connor Dunn covering it there from the Israel Cycling Academy. Looks like Connor Dunn's got no problem following that wheel right now. And I would not be surprised out on this course today. Connor Dunn is one to watch out for. This guy is just a beast of the wattage that he can put out there. We saw attack after attack after attack from him in the first round of the KISS Super League, and maybe we're going to see a little bit more tactic from him and something that is a little more pointed to really try and snipe off the front there at the last lap, perhaps. We'll have to see if there's just going to be a follow from Connor Dunn. That's maybe a little prediction. We'll have to see if that ends up playing out there, as I think he may have the wattage to maybe pull off Ed Hopper like Innsbruck Ring last lap win. We'll see if Dunn can maybe pull that off if he learned something from the Team Ribble homework that they were doing in the last couple of days. Now up toward the front end, they are still looking at the main pack here. It's currently sitting in fourth, shifting between 4th and 7th place. It is Ollie Jones still here. 184 beats per minute currently coming from him. Another aero power up, though, coming from SEG, as we saw there in the purple kit up toward the front, taking on the lead of the pack just a moment ago. We'll have to see if that was an attack or if that was just trying to hang on to the main group. Donahue here now coming out of Australia, 5.5 watts per kilogram coming from him. Spinning to win, as you can see, 112 RPMs in the upper right-hand corner. Remember, for the stats that you are currently seeing on the screen, the wattage in the upper right-hand corner, the heart rate, and the RPMs are the wattage and RPMs of the rider that's highlighted on the right-hand side of the current course currently. So Donahue here, as you can see, 5.1 watts per kilogram, riding along out of Australia. You can also see the flags that they're coming out of, the countries that they're coming out of there on the right-hand side as well. Currently looking at the main pack here with 13.2 kilometers to go. Healy here coming from Wiggles, Lacole. Stedman here, Canyon, DHB. K. Groves on the front now with another attack. Every time Groves, SCG Racing, every time he gets a power-up, he's using these at the most opportune times that he can see, trying to get off the front end of this pack, it seems. But again, the heart rate rising up there, 190 beats per minute. Not many riders have a heart rate that's threshold around 190 beats per minute. I'm guessing that this rider may be just trying to hang on at this point, having his heart rate up at that 190, but then maybe not. Another out of the saddle attack, perhaps looking to try and break things apart as they head into this little uphill gradient, 3-4% gradient. Again, you can see that in the upper right-hand corner. We're getting to the orange gradient now, and the orange numbers from the wattage now that we're seeing. Vyazin here, Lionel now coming toward the front. It looks like we're also seeing Kofidis here starting to get involved, perhaps, or nope, maybe getting lapped here in just a moment as they are off the back there with the 4:35 gap to them, actually. So it is going to be Groves still toward the front. Bigham here, Lures now. Team Ribble starting to get organized. Madison Genesis now starting to get organized as well. You can see the red and black jerseys of Madison Genesis making their way to the front. Team Dimension Quebec now taking over the front end of the group here, it looks like, with Mazzato. Now it's also going to be Sobrero there heading to the front. Dimension for Quebec definitely getting organized as we're seeing toward the front end of this race. Ribble's also getting organized to the front. Vitus now we're seeing. Here's SEG now, as you can see. This is Team SEG now, absolutely hammering from their live training studios. You can see here, it looks like they're riding on those Neos there. Live smart trainer action there coming from the live room there for the racing. What are we going to call that? The Esports Pro Racing Room for SEG. That's going to be what we're naming it there. Obviously on the Tax Neos, you can see the Tax logo in the upper left-hand corner. So those riders are most definitely feeling the gradient out there as well. And if there were any cobbles out here, that Neo would actually give, if they did turn on the rumbles of the Neo there, the Neo would actually give them feedback to the rider when they do feel the cobbles or rougher ground, if they were to go over sections that were a little bit rougher there out on course now. Team Ribble, now we're seeing Ed Hopper, though, on the right-hand side that we are highlighting, 440 watts currently. There are a couple of SEG riders that have made the main group here, so maybe we'll get back into those live shots there in just a moment if we do see them on the attack. All-Stars, you can see with the orange, light blue, and white kit going off the front. There's definitely attack off the front coming from the All-Stars. Now another All-Star is going as well. It looks like it's going to be Israel Cycling now trying to follow it up with Dunn. Now it's going to be Lures here as well, but here goes Vyazin kicking every single time for the sprint, demolishing these sprints. Bigham is trying to follow it up, but no, Dan Bigham not going to be able to make it happen. Lionel Vyazin taking down the second sprint of the day. Countering now, it looks like here. Bigham going right on through with the continuance in that 5% gradient. With this 5% gradient, after the sprint, definitely a section where you can open up a gap. Connor Swift, though, Madison Genesis, organized on the front. You see the two Madison Genesis on the right-hand side of the screen there, following up, grabbing the wheel of Lionel Vyazin there out of Belgium. All-Stars closed down by Madison Genesis now. Team Ribble continuing on the front there at 5.4 watts per kilogram in the black kit. Now it looks like Hags Berman, Axion now getting involved. It looks like getting toward the front with Vermaak. It looks like Madison Genesis, John Mold still involved toward the front. Jujon now, their sprinter, most likely saving it for the end of the race as he's not been involved in any of the intermediate sprints. I'd be watching out for Matthew Jujon that we just saw make his way to the front just a moment ago in that All-Stars kit. Maybe saving up as much as he can because he will most definitely be a threat in the final sprint. Madison Genesis has been proving, like we saw last week in the sprint, taking the 1-2, most likely going to be the main threat on the day today here. Now it looks like Grupo Compacto again. Very Grupo Compacto at this point between the rest of the riders. Nobody able to get away at this point. SEG now toward the front. Here's the sprint replay, though. It looks like we were just about to have a sprint replay. Here we go. This was Lionel Vyazin, followed up by Team Ribble, Bigham with Team Ribble there. It looks like Ribble took down the third spot there amongst the riders as the pack came flying through. We'll have to wait for the official results that they came through, but there's Vyazin with 10 watts per kilogram. Bigham, followed up by Christensen, it looks like there for a moment for Canyon, but I believe Ribble was able to just snatch that third spot right at the line here. 9.3 kilometers to go. We're back with the main pack up toward the front now. A little bit of attack, or not an attack, with a power up that really matters much for the attack. It is a drafting power up we're seeing on the front end of the pack right now. I believe that is the red jersey of a Madison Genesis, perhaps. But we'll have to wait and see how this attack plays out. This section is definitely a false flat. We'll have to see how that ends up playing out here if there's any attacks now. We're going to head over to Matt for just a moment to get a little bit of race analysis of how things have played out so far.
Thanks very much indeed, Nathan. And as I expected, it's been an extremely aggressive race so far. Just the very nature of this lower New York course has meant that it gives riders multiple opportunities on every single one of these 3 laps to try and lean on things. It's really interesting to see the teams mixing it up and actually going early, using their power-ups. We've seen a lot of draft power-ups used. We've seen the featherweight draft-ups being used. And this, I think, is one of the most aggressive races we've seen so far. I've never seen so many splits. Interesting to see some of the real thoroughbred road riders in the mix. Connor Swift getting up there. Ollie Jones, of course, the winner of the Zwift Academy, happy to try and go off the front. But I think it's because of the very nature of this course we've got here. Those constant undulations make it very, very difficult to just sit in the wheels. There's plenty of opportunities for riders feeling good to really lean on things to break up the pack. Well, can't wait to see how this one pans out.
Yeah, definitely.
Nathan, it's back to you, mate.
Thanks a lot, Matt. Yeah, definitely. The course, as you were saying there, Matt, I think is one that is going to be very difficult to get away. This section of the course, every single lap is going to be pretty much the only place where they have enough of a gradient to perhaps break things apart, especially after the sprint section. Heading into the next lap, it's usually somewhere that we do see somebody able to put a little bit of pressure on the pack, but it doesn't look like it's going to be happening this lap as we head down into the negative gradients again and head back into the figure 8. Out on the Gotham grinder, we're out in the New York court. We're into the final lap here of the KISS Super League round number 4. It looks like we're going to get a couple of images here of Ribble Pro Racing, actually, who's been extremely organized today. Shirts off, keeping cool. For those of you who do not know what it's like to race or ride out on Zwift, it's all about the cooling. When you are outside in the real world, you get all kinds of wind coming at you, and your body and your heat, the heat in the body absolutely cools down. You're just like a CPU in a computer. If you do not cool down, you will shut down. These riders look like they know what they're doing here in order to race out on Zwift. The focus on the faces here coming from Team Ribble, though, they are involved and ready to race, as you can see here. And they are following every move and been involved in every sprint so far. And as well as they've taken at least one win so far in the series. We'll see if they can get another one here in just a moment as we're heading into the final case here of round 4 of the KISS Super League here. Tim Ribble definitely still involved in this one. Now we do see Adam Zimmerman, who's been fairly quiet in that U.S. National Champion, Zwift National Champion kit just coming by on the screen there just a moment ago. Israel Cycling's Connor Dunn now, the Irish National Champion, absolutely on the attack there into 8 watts per kilogram. We may be seeing an attack, or maybe he's just trying to get well positioned on this 5% grade. You do not really want to find yourself off the back at these sections of the course. 3% grading, as you can see here, with the orange numbers. There's a feather power up on the front now. Here comes Canyon. It looks like Canyon and Iceberg to the front. The Dream Team now, Ollie Jones following it up here. Vyasen, is it going to make a break? Is it just trying to hold position here? Alex West, one of the most aggressive riders from the Zwift Academy Dream Team, with the front of the pack here with Ollie Jones. Look like they're getting organized. Madison Genesis shuts it down, comes right on by. Ian Bibby, one of the strongest that we know of from the pro ranks, out on Zwift. We'll see if he's going to take another W, the winner of the first round of the KISS Super League. Things calming down here just a little bit. We're going to head on over to Greg Lido, our race analyst here, chat a little bit about the last sprint as well as how things have developed so far in the race. Greg, over to you.
A little preview of the finish here. The final sprint here, the final sprint for the points competition, comes just 1 kilometer from the finish line. And that sprint point actually is the start of a 1/5 of a kilometer climb of about 5% gradient that we've been seeing each time they go through that sprint banner. This could be really a point where this peloton breaks up, or some of the teams make a move. And so that's what we're going to be looking at coming into this final sprint. With about 1 kilometer to go, we have the final banner, and things are really going to light up. Let's see how it turns out, Nathan.
Yeah, Greg, I think that is going to be absolutely key to what we are going to be seeing for the winner, but as well as the sprint competition. And it looks like the teams have been aware of that so far. I believe the teams have definitely been keeping at least the teams that have been interested in the sprint. They've had a couple of riders that have been going for the sprint competition. At the same time, they've been allowing those riders to get a little bit of a distance if they want to continue through with an attack on the uphill gradient after that sprint section. But with it only being 1K to the finish, you're going to have to make sure you have something in the reserves. It might even be set up for a lead out into that sprint. We'll have to see how they end up playing this out. Now, there've been a lot of teams that have been fairly quiet, though, up to this point. We have not seen Madison Genesis fairly interested at all in the sprint competition, perhaps saving all of their matches for that final K. I would not be surprised to see perhaps for the Madison Genesis team to completely counter some sort of attack, or at least a sprint go from Team Ribble or the All-Stars there. Remember, though, I'd be watching out for the likes of Wiggins here. We've seen Laughlin here from Wiggins, as we do see him making his way through the pack there. Has been fairly quiet so far, just following the wheels. We know he's got a solid sprint out there. But Yasin, I think maybe too many matches have been burned from Lionel, from the All-Stars, and they're going to be depending more on the likes of Zimmerman, as well as Casey Schum for a lead out, as well as obviously Zhujian, but all the All-Stars are still involved here. As you can see, we still do see that the Dream Team is involved still with Alex West. I'm not sure I've seen Alex West lose a community race in a sprint in the last couple of weeks that I've been watching. I do not believe that Alex West, this guy is almost unstoppable amongst the community. We have not seen him win a sprint against the pros, though, out on Zwift. He's been close, but unable to actually pull it off. We saw it in the last few K. He led things out last week, but no, John Mold came on through, took the W from Madison Genesis. I'd be watching out for them for definitely I think Madison Genesis is definitely going to be the ones to watch out for here for the W, as they've been very quiet in the sprints. They have not been in the wind much. They've done not sticking the nose in the wind. They've not been taking out a whole lot of the closing down of anything there. They've been very organized. Madison Genesis, again, showing up and showing us that they know how to race Zwift. They know how to race pro in real life. These are the guys to watch out for, I think, today. Looking at Israel Cycling now, it's still with Connor Dunn, 3.2 kilometers to go. Following the wheels closely, we can see in the upper left-hand corner there, 477 watts from this monster of a man out here. Absolutely demolishing this course right now, 180 beats per minute. Let's go ahead, before we head into the final few K in the sprint for the day, let's go back over to Matt for a little bit of overview of how things have gone so far.
Thank you very much indeed. I am on the edge of my seat here. I do agree with Greg earlier on. I think the key point in this race so far, we've had a few tentative attacks that have gone clear, but the key point, you can just see a rider just surging for Madison Genesis. They've kept their noses clean. They're capped out of the wind. There's a big move going clear on the front at the moment, but this last drag through the intermediate sprint is going to be absolutely fantastic. It's a big move that has gone off the front. It is Ian Bibby. It's a rider that can go long. He prefers a hillier course. Of course, he won on the Volcano just a couple of weeks ago. But remember, there's still 2.3 Ks to go. Will the bunch regroup and try and pull him back together collectively, or will they let him go? I think he could be reeled in here, but this is a wonderful move. I think I'm going to have to throw things back. Lots is going to happen in the last couple of kilometres. But Nathan, another thriller we've got on the cards, and it looks like Ribble are now gone on the offensive. Nathan, take it away, mate.
Yeah, this is absolutely crazy exciting here. Lures now coming on through. The drafting power-ups, though, that they have, a little bit unlucky there for Ribble to have those drafting power-ups, so they're going very early, trying to break things apart before they even hit the sprint section, because they do not have the random number games in their favor. No RNG in their favor at this point. Team Ribble on the front, 7.9 watts per kilogram. It's been shut down, though, by Lionel. Now Bigham now coming through, 12 watts per kilogram. This is for all the chips in the sprint, for the sprint competition, but this is not for the race win. Will there be a counter coming out of this? Bigham comes through and continues on through, though, with 10 watts per kilogram after Bigham takes down the sprint, because this is all about the final K now. In just a moment, we'll be heading into it. We've got 1.7 K to go. The Zwift Academy Dream Team coming through with Ollie Jones. Ed Hopper with an aero power-up, looking to not make this a sprint effort, looking to do what he did 2 weeks ago out on the Innsbruck ring with maybe a breakaway finish here, but no, it looks like it's going to be stuck to the wheel of Ed Hopper with Ollie Jones there right on the wheel there. Looking back a little bit there, it looks like that Dunn, though, now closed it down. Sobrero, it's all back together now. 1.7 kilometers to go, as you can see. Bigham making his way to the front. SEG racing there as well. The orange numbers are popping left and right here, but nobody's able to quite get away. We saw Ian Bibby with that attack just a moment ago. Not sure that's going to play out in his favor, though, as he was not able to get away. It was shut down immediately. Are they reserving something with Mold? Are they reserving something with Connor Swift? Are they going to be able to come on through with the sprint here and show that they're the strongest team out on course? Here come the Aero Power-Ups. We're into that final K here, and this is it. Adam Zimmerman, one of the most experienced riders out on Zwift, the U.S. National Zwift champion, is off the front. He's got a gap. It's 1 meter, but no. Madison Genesis closing it down. 12 watts per kilogram. John Mold looks like he's going to walk away with this one. He's got 5 meters. Nobody can hold on to John Mold's wheel as John Mold takes down round number 4 of the Kids Super League. Madison Genesis shows us again how it's done. John Mold demolishing, perfect timing on that sprint. He just absolutely killed that one coming on through. Adam Zimmerman tried to get away there, was unable to stick the gap there, and Madison Genesis closed it right on down. Absolutely killed it there. Absolutely killed it. Okay. Looks like Mold here just cooling down, 178 beats per minute. This is the winner of the race. He's finished up now, as you can see here, cooling on down. We get to see what a cool down, how quickly the heart rates actually come down as these pros have put out the most monstrous effort out on course here. We're going to be waiting for the results here. That's what we're waiting for in just a moment. We're just getting those going here for everybody in just a moment here. It was absolutely demolished, that sprint, though. John Mold, Madison just showing again. Let's head on over to Greg Leo for a little bit of analysis of that final sprint, how the race played out.
Hey, Nathan. The most interesting thing about that was we saw earlier in the race John Mold burn, I believe it was a truck power-up. That means he didn't come into the race with a helmet. Now, from talking to Ian and the Madison Genesis boys, I know they're always prepared for these races. They're always prepared to bring a helmet into the race and save it for that final moment or whenever they want to. So it's very interesting that we saw John Mold not have a helmet in the race. So it was almost lucky he was able to pick up a helmet during the race. Now, of course, he had multiple opportunities at each of the sprints and each of the start-finish lines. So that finish really depended on him having the helmet, and so he was really lucky to pick that up. And I believe we're going to go over to Matt now, who is going to be speaking to Mold. Oh no, he's going to be giving us a race summary.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Greg. What an absolute thriller that was. Great attack in the final there by Adam Zimmerman. It looked like Zimmerman had got that sewn up. Remember, Zimmerman 5th place last week, but I thought this course would be particularly difficult, quite challenging, but in the end it did come down to a bunch sprint. John Mold has basically won twice now. I spoke to John Mold ahead of today's race last week. We're going to throw to an interview now with him, just giving a little bit of insight into how he's adapted so well to Zwift and how deep that he went. So coming up in just a few seconds time should be a nice interview with John Mold. Double winner, back to back. Who would have thought it? Thanks very much for joining us here on Zwift. Mate, you went pretty deep last week from what I saw from your partner Hannah's Instagram post. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it was, I definitely think it's probably the deepest I've gone on Zwift. In a sprint at the end, especially after round 1 where Bibby put me away in a sprint. It hasn't let me forget it. I have to make sure I won the one last week.
And now I saw from the sprint, you went pretty long, and that's a unique feature of Zwift. Although it replicates the road a lot, there are some technical aspects in relation to sprinting, forcing you to go a little bit longer than normal.
Yeah, definitely. I think here's a big difference from racing on the road. You use that acceleration and on the road, but on the turbo you kind of really have to wind it up, and you can afford to go longer than you normally do. So I had the aero power up as well, which made a massive difference. And just made sure I got the momentum going and tried to hold on to it as long as I could.
Now, one of the things that I've done on Zwift, I've drilled down looking at some of the metrics, and I noticed that you actually had the lowest power to weight ratio on average for the race of all of the riders in the top 10, showing to me that tactics and drafting is absolutely key.
Yeah, definitely. It's not just who's got the best power to weight. It's using the wheels and knowing the course and making sure you're in the right place at the right time, and then trying to save as much as possible. And kind of in some ways, we just come back off a training camp, so I had really tired legs, and I was only willing to go flat out once. So I made sure I saved it all for the last little bit.
Good stuff, John. Well, thanks very much. Really enjoyed watching you last week. Looking forward to seeing how you fare tonight. Best of luck. Thanks again.
Thanks a lot.
Well, there we go. That was John Mould earlier on today. Forgive him for looking so kind of refreshed. That was earlier on, but let's go over the results, the formal results from today. We shall get those for you very, very shortly indeed. Of course, John Mould, back-to-back winners. I just need, hopefully the graphic will pop up in just a few moments' time. But no, John Mould, the first rider, of course, to win back-to-back rounds. And, of course, his team would no doubt kind of backed things up, of course, at the top of the rankings. They should have extended their lead. There we go. Confirmation. Apologies for that coming through. John Mould confirmed as the winner. Caden Groves from SEG Racing. The first time they have got a rider in the top 3. And then, of course, Alex West in 3rd. Jerry Walker, great finish by Joe Walker there in 4th for Wiggins. Connor Swift, the British road race champion, in 5th. Then Ollie Jones, of course, the Zwift Academy winner, in 6th. Winner of round 1, Ian Bibby, 7th. Then we had Dan Bigham, one of the main animators from last week. Simon Wilson also up there for Ribble. We saw him earlier on, picture in picture, and rounding out the top 10 from Dimension Data is Luca Mozzato. So let's have a look at the overall rankings from a team perspective. Remember, riders racking up the points. Here we go. Well, Madison Genesis have really extended their lead at the top of the rankings. We've still got 6 rounds to go, but look at that. Madison Genesis resplendent at the top of the rankings with 197 points. That really is impressive. But the Zwift All-Stars still looking good, still all to play for. 2nd place with 136 points. Very, very active in the racing, making sure they're at the head of affairs for the vast majority of the play, not missing anything at all. And then another Zwift community team, or the other Zwift community team, in fact, in 3rd place with 113 points, and Ribble Pro Cycling in 4th. Now, I'd like to have a look back over the finish. We've got a replay coming up in just a few moments' time. It was all kicking off. There was aero helmets all over the place, the riders using their power-ups strategically in the final. And we should have the replay coming through in just a few moments' time. And there it is. John Mould went very, very long. But there he is, just a length clear over West, just rolling in. And, of course, the first top finish there for SEG Racing. But John Mould led out. They closed towards the end. And, of course, 4th place there as well from another rider from Madison Genesis, of course, the national champion. So that's your finishing order. And let's have another little bit of a race reaction. Back to you, Nathan. But that's your replay. Clear cut from me. Back-to-back wins from John Mould.
Well, not too surprised with Madison Genesis. We've been saying it week in and week out. They won the first week. A little bit of upset for them. We're Ribble in the 2nd week, but then coming back on through in the 3rd week, Mould, and then back-to-back wins for them with John Mould, showing us how it gets done. Really lucky there, though, that aero power-up, if he did not grab that into that final lap, a little bit of the gameplay involved there for him to be able to take down that W there. John Mould, Madison Genesis still showing us that he knows how to sprint. It's been in his favor here, it looks like, as far as the sprinting goes. Now, as we head into some of the later races, we did see week 1 with Madison Genesis, also able to throw down with Ian Bibby on the climbs with that Volcano after party. It seems like they've got a match for every single race out there. Absolutely amazing for Madison Genesis. I mean, really impressive racing for them. Obviously, the All-Stars and Zwift Academy Dream Team still involved there. We see all SEG showing up this week with that 3rd place, it looked like there. Amazing result there for SEG with the live, with the live shots from them there. Maybe a little bit more pressure on them on this week. Well, thanks a lot to all the viewers out there. We're going to head on over to Matt, though, for the wrap-up of the race.
Thank you very much indeed, Nathan. Well, another thriller. Back-to-back wins for Madison Genesis and John Mould. That's 3 wins out of 4 races. But as you could see, many other teams now in the mix. Just getting a sense of how to play things on Zwift. The drafting, the power-ups. It's getting exciting. Still 6 rounds to go. But for now, it is goodbye from the Big Apple, from me, from Nathan, and from Greg. But make sure you tune in to see us next week at the same time. But for now, from the Big Apple, it's goodbye, and thanks very much for watching. Flipping heck.